Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Fatma Iqbal. I'm a board certified internal medicine physician who also specializes in obesity medicine. I am presenting to you another lecture on obesity science. And on this lecture, we will try to understand how our environment plays a part in obesity. In my prior lectures, I talked about how obesity develops, what is the set point theory about, and also about genetics and the genes that play a part in obesity. So in this lecture, we are going to talk about how the environment plays a part in obesity. We discussed how the body has a set point, and that is the set point variation for every individual. Certain individuals live on a higher set point and some at a lower set point, and this set point is determined based on a person's genes, based on their environment, their diet, their ability to exercise, so on and so forth. And so the body does everything possible to defend that set point. So it does everything possible to make sure that, if they are trying to lose weight, that the body tries to conserve the energy, tries to make them more hungrier so that they come back to that desired weight or the desired set point that the body has set. So there are outside factors that actually influence the set point and the causes of obesity. We discussed about genetics, how there are some patients are prone to obesity because of their genes. However, simply because someone is prone because of their genes does not make them automatically become obese. They may have the underlying genes for obesity, but if you put this person in a obesogenic environment or in an environment where the diet is poor, then yes, they will take on that obesity worse than somebody who doesn't has those obesity genes. So even though they will become obese, they will become obese at a worse status than somebody who has, say, thinness genes, and they are not prone to obesity. So it's important to understand that some people would respond in a different way in a different environment. And so if they are placed in an environment where the diet is causing obesity, they will become obese. However, if the same person who has the obesity genes is placed in an environment where the diet is healthy, where the environment can kind of promotes weight loss or is more of an exercise type of an environment where cars are not readily available, where you can just travel in car and go wherever you feel like. So though that kind of an environment is a less obesogenic environment, and even though this person has the obesogenic genes in them, they are not going to gain weight as much as they would have if they were in an obesogenic environment. So it mattered both ways. Either we have a patient that is in an obesogenic environment, they are going to gain weight. If they are in a healthier environment, they will not gain weight, even though they have the underlying genes. So such an important concept to understand how people become obese. It's because of the choices they make. Because unfortunately, we, as living in the Western society, are in an obesogenic environment. We do have all the facilities available to us, all the resources available to us to become both obese and to actually choose healthier options as well. So we have a variety of options. Which ones we choose does matter. So that's where the genetics and the diet does play a part. Now, moving on to something that is very important to understand as well, and that is also part of our diet, unfortunately, are food emulsifiers. Many industries, many in the food industry use the food emulsifiers, and the reason is to preserve the food. These can be your salad dressing, mayonnaise, ice creams. These are food additives that are added to your food to preserve it, to make it more um, um, as it is, in an as it is form. So the food emulsifiers have been found to affect the gut microbiome. Now, a lot of the natural medicine doctors or the functional doctors, they do work with this as well, and they do consider the gut microbiome as very important, and I believe in it as well. I do think that there is, and research also shows that there is a disruption in the bacterial environment of our gut. Um, somebody who doesn't understand that, our gut has bacteria in it, and these bacteria are used for the digestive process of your food. So it has been shown that food emulsifiers disrupt, and food emulsifiers are mostly in the processed foods. They disrupt this gentle balance between the good and the bad bacteria. And what ends up happening is that because of this disruption, a lot of times the patients end up becoming obese. How they end up getting obese based on these food emulsifiers, um, the reason is that the gut can become inflamed when the bacteria is disrupted. So you hear a lot about the anti-inflammatory diet. If you don't, you can go on YouTube. There's many people who do videos on that. There's books that are written on it. And basically what it is, it's a very healthy diet to bring the gut microbiome to a good balance, because most of our immune system does reside in our gut as a whole. And when that bacterial barrier is disrupted, it does end up causing inflammation. And when there is inflammation in the gut, the whole body suffers. So it's an important concept, again, to understand that it is important that whenever we are thinking about eating something processed, it is important to understand that that will impact our gut microbiome and hence make the environment more toxic, make the environment more inflammatory. And nowadays we see a spike in inflammatory diseases, inflammatory bowel diseases, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, um, diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, a lot of inflammatory diseases that are available now, that are now becoming more and more prevalent, unfortunately. Colon cancer actually is another part of it as well. Some of the research actually shows that the health problems from the food emulsifiers is tremendous. So we have to make that change if we can, to help keep our gut in balance. So they have a very negative effect on the gut microbiome, which can cause a plethora of health problems. And it is best to actually consider more healthier options when it comes to your diet, because when you eat a healthy diet, the gut microbiome remains in balance. And that is important if we are trying to target diseases such as obesity. Now, furthermore, I want to discuss about sleep and its impact on obesity. So sleep has a very important impact on a person's obesity as well. Several studies have shown that when the sleep pattern is disrupted, or when the sleep is less than adequate, it ends up causing upregulation of a hormone called ghrelin, and that hormone actually causes an increase in appetite, and it causes more obesity, and also decreases the good hormone, which is leptin, which actually decreases the appetite and increases energy expenditure, or the burning of calories. So sleep or lack of sleep ends up causing a major problem for patients that are obese. It is very important to write down your pattern of sleep, and also write down how many hours of sleep are you taking in. So patients that are sleep deprived or have less than adequate sleep not only are suffering because of this dysregulation in the appetite hormones, but also at the same time, a lack of sleep is promoting insulin resistance. And that is also being shown in studies, that it can cause insulin resistance. Even though insulin is there, it is not able to take in the carbohydrates. And so the blood sugar in the body is spiked up, it's higher. And as a result, cortisol in the body is higher, which is again the stress hormone. So there is a major dysregulation of hormones. It is important to understand that the hormones are deregulated when there is a lack of sleep. So if you are targeting obesity, if you are trying to lose weight, it is as important to consider your sleep as it is to consider diet and exercise. So this is one of those environmental factors that can be easily mended, and that can help patients lose weight as long as they are willing to regulate their sleep cycle. Apart from sleep, the circadian rhythm is also important. So a lot of time it's shown that if the circadian rhythm, which is your a night and day cycle, where night is for sleep and day is for waking up, is disrupted, then it causes similar effects as to sleep deprivation, where the insulin resistance is going up. And apart from that, the choices, the hunger is more towards carb rich foods. So that is also something to consider, is sleeping at its right time. Timing does matter. So if you sleep at your right time, then it has shown that it helps target obesity. As these hormones get deregulated when it comes to sleep, your circadian rhythm, it is important to consider bringing these hormones in balance if we are trying to target obesity as a disease as a whole, and not just considering simply diet and exercise changes. So the circadian rhythm plays a critical role in regulating the metabolism, the appetite, the energy balance, and the disruption to this rhythm also contributes towards the development of obesity. So consider this when you are trying to bring yourself in balance and target obesity. The last thing that I want to talk about is the role of stress in obesity. Many lectures on this. It is a part of a overall treatment for obesity, overall environmental treatment for obesity. Chronic stress is what I'm talking about, not like that immediate stress that you get from one or two life factors. So this is stress that is sustaining over time. This is stress that is constantly there. And so with stress, we see disruption in the circadian rhythm. Sleep becomes a factor. And, as I mentioned before, with sleep, it disrupts the hormonal cycles and hence end up causing obesity. So this is another important thing to understand, is that the chronic stress can end up upregulating hormones such as cortisol, which actually end up increasing the blood sugar levels, and so hence the insulin, making the body insulin resistant as a whole, creating a similar picture as a diabetic. So chronic stress causes an increase in appetite and can lead to overeating. Particularly when people are stressed, they don't go for the healthier foods. Nobody says, "Oh, I'm so stressed. I feel like eating a carrot." Most of the time, it is the unhealthy foods that are indulged on. So that is something to keep in mind, is, should we be working on our stress if we are trying to lose weight? Yes, it's a major part of your fight against obesity. The second thing that stress can cause, it can disrupt metabolism and cause insulin resistance. So, like I mentioned, it is the stress hormone cortisol that causes increase in blood sugar, spikes up the blood sugar. Stress is needed when we need it. Like, say, a lion was chasing you, you need to have some stress. Your blood sugar has to go up so you get the energy to run away or do something to save yourself. But in a chronic nature, on a constant nature, it is harmful. It is quite harmful because it can end up causing that long-term spike in sugars that end up causing insulin resistance. And it also ends up depositing more fat around the abdominal region as well, where insulin resistant fat deposition is mostly found. Stress also ends up causing people to have a more sedentary behavior. In this case, less movement, less exercise. It basically is a lack of motivation because of the stress. Your mind is boggled by something else. It's not going to go towards physical activity because it's already fatigued and tired from either depression or thinking about the stressful event most of the time. So that is a common thing that happens with when patients are chronically stressed. And lastly, the stress causes is disruption in the sleep pattern. So it's a very common thing that we see is that the circadian rhythm is disrupted, the sleep cycle is disrupted. And like I mentioned before, important to understand, if the sleep cycle is disrupted, it does end up causing an upregulation in ghrelin, which is the hormone that causes you to become more hungry, more appetite, and deregulates or goes down in leptin, which is the hormone that tells you to stop eating. So these things are important to understand when you are targeting obesity as a whole. So if your goal is to lose weight, it's not just the diet, it's not just the genes, it's not just exercise, it is also your sleep, it is also your stress level, and your circadian rhythm, the timings that you are taking to sleep. So all these things are very important to consider when we are thinking of obesity as a whole. Hopefully this lecture was also important to you, and this helped you understand more and more about obesity science, so you can become much better at understanding your disease and targeting it as a disease as a whole. And that's the purpose of my lectures. Please make sure that you subscribe to my channel so I continue to put out good content for you for educational purposes. Thank you so much. Take care.